on, everyone? We have another one of our Aggie Zoom Hangouts. It's the last one of the football season of 2020, the crazy football season that was 2020. Well, happy 2021 to everyone on here. I'm Travis Brown at the Eagle. We're joined here also by Robert Cessna and Alex Miller, who is going to take over hosting duties for the rest of this Aggie Zoom Hangout. What's going on, Alex? Alex, what was your New Year's resolution?
What was my New Year's resolution?
Do you have one?
It should have been I should stop eating Chick-fil-A so much because I've gotten it 3 days in a row for lunch, but I've obviously failed at that. So we'll have to reconvene on that one next year. So
there you go. There you go. Take it away, Alex.
Yeah, well, it's been 10 days since A&M beat North Carolina in the Orange Bowl, and so the Eagle Sports crew, we just want to look back at what was one of the best seasons in A&M history and just look at who we thought were some of the best players, some of the best moments, maybe a big surprise, and where the Aggies should turn their sights to as they enter this offseason. So first, before we get into some of the questions, we touched on this a little bit after the bowl game, but now that we've had a few days to just take a break from A&M football, looking back, what are your thoughts and kind of just final impressions on A&M's 2020 football season? Cease, we can start with you.
I'll just say took a big step forward. I mean, when you look at everything, I picked this team to go 6-3. I thought they'd lose a game to COVID in that regular season and pay attention to the bowls because you never know where you're going to play depending on your regular season. But the fact how far A&M came with the offensive line, the defense did what I thought they would really in year 3. Elko overcome all the personnel losses from the start of the season and from where they went with that Vanderbilt game. I thought we were looking at a 5-4 team or a 4-5 team. So to finish, in the regular season and to go ahead and go 9-1, Orange Bowl victory. I had them at best probably a C+ before the season started, and you got to give them an A-.
It's funny because I think me and Cease talked about this a lot before the season started on how many games would be lost to COVID. Cease, you thought, I think at least like 2 might be lost. In all reality, it's kind of funny. As the SEC got through their season mostly unscathed, the one game that they lost due to COVID was actually an A&M game. So that Cease, you had me on that one, Alyssa, because I thought they were going to make it through probably mostly unscathed. I think that they achieved more than probably any of necessarily thought. I think everyone thought that 2020 was going to be a big year, but there was still a lot of question marks with the offensive line. There was still a lot of question marks with would Mon take that next step to help guide them, and would everyone necessarily stay healthy through the season? And I think that happened and then some. And anytime that any program is going into Selection Sunday with a really good, honest bid for one of those top 4 spots, you can't complain about that season. I think that's naturally the season that A&M had.
For sure. I think this season could be deemed as a success for sure for A&M. I know that the Aggies on the team and Aggie fans are not satisfied. Being left out of the playoff was obviously a disappointment for all associated with A&M. But at the end of the day, 9-1 with an Orange Bowl win. A&M took a good step forward this season. Let's move into some other questions now. Travis, we'll start with you. Who do you think was A&M's best player this season?
I mean, you just have to look as far as the All-American polls to figure out that was Kenyan Green. It's a guy that I serve on the Football Writers Association All-American Committee, so we had a chance to reach out to some of the coaches and hear their takes. And Jimbo Fisher pretty adamantly said that he was the best player on the team, and I think all the All-American selections show that as well. The offensive line, like I said, was a big question mark coming into the season. They were just probably one of the worst units on the team last year. Turned out to be one of the best. And as you saw how that offensive line went this season, that's the way that the Aggies as a whole went in this season. When things got a little bit hairy in that Orange Bowl game, it was because the offensive line was having some struggles, letting some people get into the backfield. So Kenyan Green was the anchor of that. He's the best player. And the good thing for the Aggies is he's one of the only guys on that offensive line that might return for next season. So I think that nod has to go to Kenyan Green.
Cease, how about you? Who do you think was A&M's best player?
My answer without hesitation would be Buddy Johnson. I thought about that when I was looking at doing my all SEC teams, my All American team. I agree with Travis how important Kenyan Green was, but when I look at the offensive line, how many times they put Robinson in, and I don't want to knock Green. I voted for him for I do AP All American. I did All American as well. But I think this team maybe could have gone 9-1 without Kenyan Green. I don't think they could have gone 9-1 without Buddy Johnson. And I thought Buddy got hosed just about everywhere possible because I actually voted for him SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I just thought he was the glue of that defense, the big play against Florida, the big plays that he made and the consistent plays he made with Hines going out, a mentor to Hansford. Sometimes I got to laugh is because it's not the most talented players or your most important players. Because I just think without Buddy Johnson, this team would have had a lot of problems this year. And that's one of the things we'll never know. But, I actually thought about voting him for All-American. I didn't after, my fellow peers just didn't seem to have the same Buddy deal. And I don't know why. I'll be interested. I'd like to talk to all the SEC coaches how you not put Buddy Johnson on first or second team all SEC, because when I saw this team for 10 games, I thought he was huge. I thought he was at least an all SEC linebacker. So the beauty of when you say who is your best or most valuable player or whatever, that's why we love sports.
I'll go with
real quick jumping in. I would argue too that Buddy Johnson. I thought that Buddy Johnson too was an all SEC candidate. It was a pretty stacked year as far as the linebackers go, strong linebacking core. You had that Collins from Tulsa. You had Awusa, I can't say it, the guy from Notre Dame linebacker. It was a pretty stacked field for linebacker this year. But Buddy Johnson, if you want to talk, also just leadership wise, he was the leader of the team.
For sure. Buddy Johnson, definitely the glue of the defense, a leader that A&M's going to miss moving forward, a team captain. You guys mentioned Kenyan and Buddy. I think those are two good picks for A&M's best player this season. I'll go with Kellen. You think about Kellen, he kind of had an up and down career. It culminated with him breaking a bunch of records. You think about he started at the Rose Bowl, ends at the Orange Bowl. You think about Kellen this season, though. He didn't have a Heisman-worthy season, but he didn't make the mistakes that we've seen Kellen make in times past. He reduced the amount of turnovers. He improved his passing. He made key plays in key games when A&M needed it. Think about the plays they made against Florida, those downfield passes, some things we hadn't seen before, the comeback win against Auburn, and then the comeback win against North Carolina to just kind of cap off his career. And so I'll go with Kellen Mond just on that one. Well,
okay, did I miss something? Did we end at the Rose Bowl?
Orange Bowl.
I thought you said he started and ended at the Rose Bowl. So
I meant to say Orange Bowl if I said Rose Bowl. Sorry, Cease.
Hey, the Rose Bowl was in Dallas this year. Everything's crazy.
I was going to hand in mileage to California. I mean, I hadn't done my expenses yet from the Orange Bowl.
Could have had In-N-Out instead of McDonald's or Burger King. Well, moving along.
Good point.
What do you guys think was maybe the biggest moment or the biggest play for A&M this season?
Cease, you take this one first.
Oh, I'm going to go with the fumble against Florida. If they don't get the fumble, I think Florida goes down with Trask, scores, wins the ball game. A&M's 1-2, and life's completely different. I don't know what happens after that. That was such a huge loss a huge victory when you saw how Jimbo and Mon reacted after. And I just thought they just kept building after that moment. And, I don't want to over glorify the fact that A&M got the fumble, but I just expected Florida at that point to go down and score because their offense had been really so good in Trask, and it was a pretty day but those 50,000 fans, roared up, and Dan Mullen pulled his first gaffe of many.
Yeah, I mean that probably does have to be the best play of the season. I'll go a little offbeat here and just say the best set of plays this season is all those important third down completions that Kellen Mond found with Jaden Wydermyer for a team that led the country in third down completion percentage for the majority of the season. And in Jimbo's Fisher style of offense, you're going to get what you can get on first down and second down to give yourself a chance on a third and short, and own that time of possession, which was really huge in a lot of those games. You have to have those third down completions, and Jalen Wydermyer really proved to be that guy that Kellen Mond could rely on. So there's plenty of times where you can go through, I think in the about 15 to 20, where Wydermyer was those are really key for the whole season.
Yeah, I think one of my big plays for A&M this season, I'll go with one of those passes from Kellen Mond to Jalen Wydermyer, and it was the touchdown pass early in the fourth quarter against Auburn. A&M trails, and if you remember correctly, the pass went through the Auburn safety's hands, and Jalen caught a touchdown, a 20-yard touchdown. That's normally a play that Auburn takes full advantage of, and that's in past we've seen Kellen make maybe an errant pass and turn the ball over in a situation like that. If that's an interception, I mean, who knows what happens? A&M goes to Auburn, maybe the Aggies lose, and that kind of takes the the life and air out of the season. And just thinking about how big that play was to start that comeback. A&M took the lead, and then they held on. They get the 11-point win at Auburn. I think that was a big play for the Aggies, trying to find a way to win games when it was tough and it was close. It looks like we've lost Travis for a moment. We'll see if we can get him back here for the last few questions. Cease, we'll keep rolling along. What do you think was maybe the biggest surprise of the season for A&M?
I just thought that offensive line, because we just hammered it so much last year, and it wasn't like they were absolutely horrible. They just were below average against those ranked teams. You look at those 5 big games that they lost, the offensive line just couldn't hold their own. And if you don't hold your own in the SEC at the line, you're not going to have a lot of success. So, personally, I was hopeful for A&M's sake that they would become average in big games against the Alabamas and the Auburns and what have you. But as a group, there's no doubt McCollum might be the unsung hero when you think about that offensive line. 4 guys come back, and, without a doubt, Kenyan Green is an All-American. But once again last year they praised Prater. And once again, you got to believe that the players knew how important he was to step in with McCollum got hurt. But I will say the way McCollum played this year, and listening to everybody else, I think he's one of my unsung guys in the offensive line, to me, taking that huge step forward. I just got to give the offensive line.
Hey guys, what I missed?
Travis.
Hey, there's Travis. We got him back. Travis, we moved along to our next question. The biggest surprise of the season. Cease just touched on A&M's offensive line.
You took mine. You know what? I know he was strong in the year before, but I was just really impressed with what Miles Jones was able to do in the defensive secondary. He really turned in to a lockdown cornerback and a lockdown coverage guy this season. I think it was more evident in the 2 games that he missed, the Tennessee game and the Orange Bowl. Not to say that those guys, Brian George and Jalen Jones, didn't necessarily do a great job in that game, but you just could tell that North Carolina's quarterback had a little bit more range, had a little bit more spots to look at throughout the whole of the field. It's one of those positions, kind of like offensive line, that the less you hear about a guy, probably the better that you've done. He made some great open field tackles, was a great open field tackler this season when they tried to run outside. And so you did hear his name then, but you really didn't hear his name called that much through the season. I think Miles Jones was a really, really good asset this year.
Yeah, I was going to try and lean toward Miles Jones. I don't know if this was necessarily a surprise, but Anaya Smith just his presence on offense in the run game, in the pass game, A&M needed a playmaker, and he was really the playmaker. We saw flashes of that his freshman year, and he really took off this season. We knew about Spiller. We knew about Wademeyer. We knew that they needed some player to emerge out wide. And, Smith, he started at running back. He moves to slot receiver when Chapman and a couple of those guys go down. And, I was just surprised how big of an impact Anaya Smith had this season. And he's really A&M's top weapon right now, I feel like, on offense. And he's really their Swiss Army knife, too.
Honorable mention goes to Devon Achane as well, and what he was able to do. I mean, look at what was it? The Auburn game was huge in that game, and then of course, the MVP there when Spiller was hurt in the Orange Bowl. So he definitely deserves an honorable mention nod.
For sure. Well, we're moving along to our final question. Where does A&M need to grow this offseason to maintain success and build off a strong 2020 season?
Age before beauty.
Here's the deal is I think this team / program's got tons of rooms for improvement. I think A&M took advantage of a down year for the SEC and everything fell in place. I think there's a lot of things that A&M has to improve on to maintain where they're at, let alone go forward. You always look at Alabama. And so where does A&M have to improve? Number one of the, and this is a small thing, A&M's got to get more out of their kicking game. When you look at Alabama, when they have Devontae Smith and Waddle returning kicks, the pressure that puts on another team. A&M fair catches, kickoffs. Smith, they don't let him, he's pretty good on punt returns, but he didn't. I said all year long he'd break one, but he hasn't. But, A&M's got to get better on kickoff returns. Alabama, you think about the big plays they had this year in the kicking game, and they're so good in the other parts. A&M's got to stretch the field. When you look at the longest completions they've had, everybody knows that. You look once again at Alabama, the big plays they hit against A&M and almost everybody. You got to have those big plays, and A&M's offense does not have that. And then the last thing I see, you got to have more turnovers. You got to have a gambling defense. A&M still in year 3 in Elko. In year 4, they're much better at putting pressure on quarterback, but I want to see turnovers. Turnovers lead to points. And we saw that in the Florida, the big fumble. But they got to have a defense to be more of head hitters, so to speak. Get the big interceptions, get the big fumbles, more of them. So that's 3 areas where I want to see A&M improve.
If you look at the position groups that are going to be affected most by this year, of course, offensive line, they're going to have to replace a lot of guys and try to find that continuity. It took that offensive line 4 years to find that continuity that they had this year. And if they're going to be able to want to be able to maintain that same level, it's going to have to be a group that meshes in an off season. And so especially with what we would assume would be a red shirt, or I guess a freshman, sophomore, however you want to classify people with this pandemic year, first year starter quarterback coming in, whoever that might be, that offensive line is going to be even more important because you don't have the veteran savvy of Kellen Mond back there. So that's going to be 1. 2, we just talked about it, quarterback. We're going to have a quarterback that steps in and gets right to everything as a first year starter. We'll go with that, like I said, and that's going to be very important. But I think that the position group that really is going to have to do the most, and it kind of touched a little bit on what Cease was saying, is the wide receiving core, because they relied mostly on 2 guys and a tight end this season. I think Jimbo Fisher in his offense, and most offenses like to have a little bit of a rotation. Look at what Alabama did. Like C said, they had 3 to 4 wide receivers who are all big play threats. A&M is going to need that if they're going to go on. I mean, the SEC is starting to prove that it is an offensive league, not necessarily a defensive league, and you're going to have to match that firepower with firepower, and that starts with wide receivers. I don't think Jimbo Fisher's offense is necessarily one that's going to be taking shots down the field all the time, but you got to be able to have a threat that stretches the defenses at times to open up that run game that Jimbo Fisher likes to rely on. So Damon Demas, I know, is everybody's favorite player. He's going to have to step up a little bit. They're going to have to find that vertical threat and then just be able to continue on the route of good possession receivers like they've had.
Yeah, I'm with both of you. You both mentioned very important areas that A&M needs to improve on. I think A&M is going to be pretty sound on defense next year. They return a lot of key guys. Getting PV back's big for A&M. You know, they bring back DeMarvin Leal. They're losing Bobby Brown and Buddy Johnson, but you know, Hansford's coming back. Andre White played pretty well in that bowl game, and I think quarterback has got to be the biggest one. We've seen how hard it is to master Jimbo Fisher's offense, and it took Kellen Mond 3 years to do it. And so Haynes King and Zach Calzada, they're going to be battling it out spring and summer. It wouldn't surprise me if we're a few days before kickoff for the 2021 season and we're still wondering who A&M starting quarterback's going to be.
Two more to throw in there too. Cease mentioned the kicking game. The kicking game on the other side, Seth Small proved 2 years ago that he was a very strong kicker as a true freshman. I would argue to say, and Cease, you can challenge me on this, that he took a step back this year. There was a couple of times where they needed a key field goal and he just wasn't able to produce. They need to be able to have that consistency and that faith in their kicker that they can. Now, again, on the contrary, you did have the Florida game where he came up with a big clutch kick at the end, but little bit more consistency in the kicking game. And then I want to actually close out with a question for y'all too. This is a season that's very extraordinary because of how many people were hit the transfer portal because of that ability to opt out, because of that ability to have an extra season. So when you talk about kind of restacking different parts of this team to maintain that consistency, do you think that this is a program or a time that Jimbo Fisher and A&M should go to the transfer portal to bring in some veteran players to fill some of those roles? Maybe if it's just a rental situation, kind of if you want to use a pro term, a rental situation for a year or two, or do you keep developing that younger team, even if it costs you having to maybe digress a season to improve a couple seasons in advance? It's that, if you want to talk, like we said, pros, it's that free agency or develop your own internal talent kind of argument. What do you think?
I'd bet a Coke that they'll go out and get an offensive lineman. Because when I looked at, there's 4 spots to fill. And the fact that Robinson came in and played a lot, but other than that, no one else played. And we saw what experienced linemen can do for you this year with their 4 seniors. So if there's somebody out there, and I think Henson has proven himself this year with this offensive line in Jimbo, if there's somebody out there, now maybe there's a stud JC guy that they know, but I'm just saying is I don't think all 5 starting offensive linemen for A&M for next year are on the team right now. I think they're going to have to get at least one that they really feel good about, because once again is A&M is at that point, I feel, where like, wow, somebody's saying, I want to go play for a team that could go to the Final Four. I don't want to play here for Podunk. I'm the best player in Podunk University. I've got my degree. I want to go play at A&M. And I'm thinking whether that's a JC guy or a transfer, I think they need to get somebody in the offensive line.
Yeah, I think I'm with Cease on that one. It would not surprise me if A&M went out and kind of had a best available possibility, trying to go get an offensive lineman, whatever position that may be, tackle or guard. But yeah, I think if you're going to do it, now's the time. The rules are allowing it, and there's obviously a need at the position. And so having an experienced guy, like C said, it showed to pay off this year for A&M. And instead of having 4 new guys, maybe you only have 3. And so I know A&M's recruiting numbers, they signed the majority of their class. They've got just a couple of spots left, maybe 3 or 4. And so it'll be interesting to see how A&M uses those as we get closer to the second signing day, first week of February.
I think you're right.
I'll also say I thought.
Go ahead, Cease.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised Carson Green hasn't announced yet. So, I want to say that because I guess he still could come back, which would be huge if you get, and there was thought that maybe one of those guys would come back and make that transition a little bit easier, but it hasn't happened. Carson Green's the only one. I just want to say so people know that we're aware that Carson Green hasn't announced.
Yeah, and then I think I agree with you. I actually think if they do get a position with a veteran guy, maybe a center would be the way to go, just because even when you looked at when Ryan McCollum went out there in the Orange Bowl, they have Smart Chibozo, I believe, who is technically the backup on the depth chart. But when he went out, they actually had Kenyan Green come out and do some snaps. I don't necessarily think you want Kenyan Green as your center on this offensive line with what he's been able to do a little bit further outside. So if you're going to bring a guy in, bring in a center who can make some of the reads, make some of the calls, and let those guys behind him develop a little bit. This is going to be a little bit off the wall. I wouldn't mind seeing them going out and getting a veteran safety, maybe not necessarily to start, because they have Leon O'Neal and Damani Richardson, who are very talented, athletic guys out there who can do the job and will probably start next year. But as it's been shown and proven, Leon O'Neal is a little bit of an emotional streak, and he's a guy that might get himself in trouble, can make, for every 5 big plays he makes, he might have 2 just total, facepalm kind of plays. And I think having Keldrick Harper back there as a guy who could sub in, who is a steadying force back there and might be a steadying voice in that room as well, would be helpful for those guys next year with how volatile Leon O'Neal could be. They do have Antonio Johnson, who's a guy that probably will step in to that position as well a little bit, even though he kind of fluctuated between safety and nickel. That can help out in maybe some of those situations, but just more so than someone who is just right away plug and play athletically on the field, maybe someone who has a little bit of a level head and veteran savvy just to inject into that room to help kind of counterbalance the emotion of Leon O'Neal might be nice as well.
Maybe I could pitch to Jimbo that you could be Leon O'Neal's handler. That way you get to go behind the scenes and give us that.
I think that would be a great job for Alex. Alex is pretty level-headed.
Yeah.
Alex could take him to church. What a great idea.
As long as he gives me control of his Twitter. All right, guys. Well, I think that's all the questions we've got. You got any final thoughts on A&M's 2020 football season?
I think that I'll let Cease have the last word on this. I think it was, despite all of the hiccups, I think with the biggest argument heading into it before the pandemic happened was this was going to be a good season because of the way A&M's schedule panned out. And then it switches. All the hard games went to the beginning. It was all SEC, absolute grind. And it's something that Kellen Mond, it seems like something they've taken a lot of pride in, the fact that they were able to roll with the punches on that pretty well and still manage to have that season that everyone expected, despite the schedule being more difficult and not being set up the same way as it was before. Anytime, like I said, anytime that you're in contention on Selection Sunday, that's the mark of a good season. We'll see how many more times Jimbo Fisher can do that. And I'll throw this out there, tongue in cheek, justify that paycheck.
I look at it from every standpoint: a fan, a player, a coach, a media person. Such a rewarding year, but yet to me somewhat unfilling. I think about, we walked up to Alabama and there's nobody there basically. And you think about all the success A&M had in Kyle Field. I didn't feel like at any point the stadium was going to crumble below my feet. All the things that, make college football, the Grove, and of course, Ole Miss didn't come here, but, you live for those deals. I don't know how many road trips left in me. And you think about all the pageantry that should have gone with a 9-1 season, including the Orange Bowl. How about spending 3 or 4 days at the Orange Bowl? We missed out on that. They missed out on that. And Buddy, someone asked Buddy, I know at one of those Zoom conference, how do you like Miami? He said he's not even there yet. I mean, there was just so much missing in a 9-1 season, whether you're a fan, a coach, or player, that's supposed to come with a 9-1 season. That's what I missed. And I think the players missed them. I think Jimbo missed them. I think the fans missed them. And it was part of, don't get me wrong, I'm glad we went to a vacant Orange Bowl, basically. But hopefully those days are behind us.
I would agree. Hopefully the days of going through every single person on the roster before the game and seeing who's out with COVID and not before the game start, hopefully those days are over as well.
For sure. I'm with both of you. Well, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in to our final Aggie Sports Zoom Hangout talking about football. We might be back with some basketball, baseball, other sports content, A&M related. But for now, this is all we've got on A&M football. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into these each week. I know I've enjoyed it, and Travis and Cease have enjoyed getting to do these with different writers from across the country. It's been a good way to still connect and talk about football and have a little sense of normalcy and just a weird time. So
is it normalcy or normalcy?
Normalcy. There you go.
I actually thought you had it right, and I've always had it wrong.
He's still out in the Rose Bowl.
Were you the guy with the Michigan State flag outside the national championship game?
Sources can either confirm or deny that statement. But
also, hey, hats off to Alex. Good. You know, good hosting today.
Now that I think about it, he does look like a young Jim Harbaugh.
Are you wearing khakis?
No, I'm wearing jeans.
Come on.
And I'm not making $4 million.
Alex, you want to close it out?
Close
it out. How are we closing this out?
You got it, Travis. This is your show.
Thanks, everyone, again, like Alex said, for joining us this season. It's been a weird one, but we're glad to have been able to bring this to you and bring the content to you. Like Alex said, we'll be back and doing more of these for basketball and baseball and everything. And we might bring it back a little bit more in the format of the My Aggie Nation podcast as well. So if you're watching, if you're listening, thank you. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. And hopefully we'll be back doing this more normal next season in 2021. Have a great rest of your off season if you're football fans, and we'll see you talking basketball next time.